Brand up.
It's not the camera, of course, that is scaring us. It's everything behind the camera, the people that's going to be watching, how we're going to say something. Usually it comes down to, this is what I call the 4 plagues that prevents people from being good enough as a speaker. There's perfection, there is the impostor syndrome, there is the fear of disappointing others, and then needing external validation.
Brand up.
What's up, podcast listeners? First of all, I want to say thank you for listening to the show and also let you know that I have some exciting news that I don't want you to miss. I'm thrilled to introduce the Brand Up Podletter, which is technically my podcast and newsletter all in one. And you can sign up completely for free at www.thebrandupshow.com. And by subscribing to the Podletter, it actually sounds pretty cool. Podletter. You'll be the first to know when a new episode of the Brand Up Podcast is released. You'll also get exclusive access to all my upcoming guests, behind the scenes in my own business, live Q&A, plus a free Brand Up training which will walk you through exactly how to start building your own personal brand online while you generate customers for your own business in a predictable and efficient manner. So I hope to see you in your inbox. www.thebrandupshow.com.
Brand up.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Brand Up Podcast. Today I have a friend of mine as a guest, Mr. Kit Pang, and he's the founder of BostonSpeaks. And he's actually locally here in Boston. We met a few years ago at one of your events, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah.
I think I even was to one of your workshops. You help people building their confidence speaking. Now, this can mean speaking on a stage, but for today's episode, we want to focus a little bit more towards people that speak in front of a camera in a podcast setting. And then, of course, the same crowd might end up having their own small events or might land even speaking events. But before we dive into the episode, Kit, you want to give people a little bit of a story on how did you even get started into this industry, how long ago, and then we'll dive into a couple of questions.
Yeah, sure, and thank you for having me on. So I was actually a hip-hop street performer here in Boston, and when my passion and dance started dying down, I saw speakers out there, and I'm like, hey, how the heck are they getting booked and paid to speak? Because as you know, as entrepreneurs, one of the best things that we have to do is to learn how to go speak and to get business. And so the way I got in was I didn't have any experience with speaking, but I would host workshops and go on Eventbrite and meet up and find places. I would say, hey, I'm going to host a workshop on public speaking, get butts in seats. And then that's how I really started getting into the speaking world. I would do like one event every single day and then get people there over and over and over and over. And now that's what I'm just doing full time. Exactly.
Awesome. So I'm curious because you transitioned from being a hip-hop dancer, which had almost nothing to do with actual speaking. It was more of a visual thing, right? Like everything was dancing. So then how and why speaking? What did you find exciting for you at that point in time? What was the main thing that attracted you to this scene?
Yeah, I'm going to be very, very honest. So some of you might be listening out there that might want to get a TEDx talk. So the thing was, in that moment, I also applied to a TEDx event, and I didn't know I was going to get in or not, but I got in when I applied, and the topic was around communication. I don't know why I wanted to do something with communication. And when I got in, I'm like, oh, this is now giving me a boost to do something in communication. So it actually gave me an extra boost to go into it as well. So that helped me get into it more.
It helped you with building your own confidence too, to kind of go into the TEDx. Was that the first TEDx talk that you had?
Yeah, I only have one. But
only
yes.
one? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, only.
Yeah.
Not that you need more than one, but all right. So, and probably a lot of the audiences that you have versus people listening to the podcast or even watching on YouTube or whatever kind of overlap, right? Like at the end of the day, especially content creators, people like, online entrepreneurs, online coaches, they need to bring their message on camera in particular. Now, some of them might have had the speaking gig before, and a speaking gig can be, in my opinion, you can be a guest. Let's say we take real estate because we were just chatting about this right before the episode. a real estate event. This can be like a lunch and learn. I actually, on my way here, I saw an ad for a lunch and learn. So that can be 10 people, 20 people as guests, and then you are a speaker in front of that crowd, right? But when you pull the camera to record a video, some people might even find that more daunting because you look at the lens and you don't even know who do you talk to, especially if this is the first time creating videos. Now, of course, we'll dive into this a little bit later in the episode. Podcasting, in my opinion, especially if it's just audio, it's completely different because you don't need the lens. You just turn on the mic, the mixer, GarageBand, or whatever other software you use, and then you hit record. It's so much easier, in my opinion. But video, a lot of people have this fright of looking directly into the lens and then start talking to the camera. Let's start there. How do we build confidence in that direction when it's just about doing videos?
Yeah, so actually let me step back a little bit. So all of the people that I work with, even though I say I'm a public speaking guy, so kind of like what you're saying, when I say fear of public speaking or public speaking anxiety, or when we're talking about anxiety over a camera, so most people think it's, oh, we got to speak in front of 1,000 people, and that's when we'll be scared. No, it's the majority of the people that I work with, it's either in front of the camera, in small meetings, colleagues, etc. It's usually the smaller situations.
Events?
Yeah, it's not the bigger. It's usually not the bigger events. Now, addressing the camera, I know this is going to sound funny and silly, but we're not scared of talking to the machine. Okay, we're not scared of looking at the machine itself. It's not scaring us. It's the concept of what is behind the machine. And so the clients that I have, whether they're from Hong Kong to California or here in Boston, here's the thing. When it comes to anxiety speaking, it doesn't matter. It's not how old you are. It's not what income you make. It's not what ethnicity you are. It's not what kind of background you had. If whether you're new or actually you had a lot of experience. Do you know what's the most common thing among all of my clients?
I'm curious.
It's the way that they think. So this is funny because how do people in different parts of the world all come to the same conclusion of how they think? So when I say how they think, it could be, oh, when I'm going to speak, well, people are going to be judging me negatively, right? Mistakes and failures are bad. When I say something, when I fumble, then that means it's going to look bad on me. If I look like an idiot, then that's going to bring down my reputation. If I look nervous, or if I sound nervous, or if I look nervous on camera, then being seen as nervous is a bad or weak thing. Right? So it's not the camera, of course, that is scaring us. It's everything behind the camera, the people that's going to be watching, how we're going to say something. Usually it comes down to, this is what I call the 4 plagues that prevents people from being good enough as a speaker. Perfection. No particular order. There's perfection. There is the impostor syndrome. There is the fear of disappointing others, and then needing external validation. So
let's break them down.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, So when it comes to the camera, it really gets down to those core things. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about. I feel like the one that's kind of being brought a lot more than the other is the imposter syndrome, especially online, because a lot of people think like, oh, who am I to talk about this topic, right? So how do people, and I have my own opinion about that, but I'm curious to find out yours. How do they go past that?
So when you say that, your meaning of imposter syndrome right now is it I don't have, who am I to talk about that? As in, are you saying, I'm not the expert, I don't know enough?
Exactly, like for example, from a business standpoint, people, let's say an online trainer that it's maybe been doing this in person for a while, but then it's the first time that he or she is trying to build the brand online. So now, again, start recording videos might seem for that person being like, I've never shared publicly these opinions. I've only shared them with my private clients. So in a one-on-one setting with somebody else, they are just in their comfort zone. They've been doing it for a while, but now when they have to do that online in front of, thinking TikTok, Instagram, whatever, YouTube Shorts can get tens of thousands of views or whatever. And then now it's their opinion, and they know, especially when it comes to like fitness or whatever, there's so many ways to burn fat, build muscle, and all that.
Yeah.
Now they're being afraid of, how am I being seen as an expert because I have no credibility online? I might have some in person, for that example, but there's nothing online that says you are, or you should talk about this because you have this, or that. Right?
Have you ever felt this way?
Well, I felt it, but in a different scenario. I felt it because English is not my first language. So I felt it because I thought my accent is going to matter a lot more than actually. I mean, nobody gave a crap. Like, I've never had a negative comment about my accent ever. And then, of course, if I would have tried to maybe do videos about how to improve your English, maybe I would have, right? But then I was talking only about the things that I knew. And then my superpower was always this online marketing game, client acquisition, and then personal branding, because it's my main passion. But I've never had one comment about that. But it took me, I don't know, it took me probably a year to go past that. So that was my thing. It wasn't necessarily the imposter syndrome, because I wasn't talking about things that I didn't know I had some type of result in it. But my fear of the camera was because of this. Am I going to be judged? People are going to crucify me because of my accent or whatever, right? Because I was listening, all the people that I was listening to, they were native English speakers. So I was comparing myself with them. I wasn't comparing myself with another person that was well-known and then had an accent. So I think, in my opinion, that's why I was struggling with it.
Yeah. And I want to go back to your answer, but I want to touch upon this real quick.
Yeah.
The biggest mistake, actually, let me share this story first, and I'll explain this. So there was a book that I read. It was called Upstream. That's the name of the book. So what does upstream mean? It means to go to the root of the problem. But they shared this health parable, and it was this story I'm going to share now. So imagine there are these two adults having a picnic next to a river, and then suddenly there's a kid that comes drowning down the river, and one of the adults, like, oh my God, he jumps in and goes saves the kid. And while the first kid is saved, he sees another kid, and then there's another kid. Now both of the adults are in the water saving the kids. And so eventually more kids coming down, and then one of the adults gets out the water, and the person's like, what are you doing? We got to go save the kids. And the person said, well, I'm going to go upstream to see what the heck is happening that all the kids are coming down in the first place. Yeah. Yes. So the biggest mistake is that people are not addressing the cause of the fear. What they want to do is practice more and learn more speaking skills. Oh, I'm gonna do this 100 times so I'll be confident on camera. Don't get me wrong, that's not bad. But let's say your example. You were caught up, not saying you, but most people, let's say with an accent. The mistake number 2 is they're too busy reacting to the symptoms. Like the kids coming down. Oh my God, all the kids are coming down. I have to react to that. I mean, how could the accent? Oh my God, I have to have a better accent, right? I got to learn better English. I got to pronounce this better. I got to do all of that. Well, they're not really addressing the cause of it in the first place. So we're too busy reacting to everything else. And because we're too busy reacting to everything else, we don't have the time to go and find out, well, what's really causing the root of the problem. So most people get too sidetracked. So now I'm going to bring it back to the expert, right? So some people think, I'm not the expert. Well, what's the mistake that people do? They try to learn everything. But first they have to address and really ask themselves, is it that I don't feel like an expert? That's why I'm not able to give value, right? And so if they, the mistake is, I just need to learn everything in order to be the expert one day. But they don't take time to question.
What does that even mean?
What does that even mean to them? Okay? So I'm saying that's one of the first things we need to do.
No, and I think it makes sense. And I'll tell you a quick story because this applies. My perfect example is my wife. She has this beauty salon here in not too far from here. And when COVID hit, her salon was completely shut down. So I said to her, all right, you've built a skill set for the last 2 to 3 years. Let's put that into an online course and sell it online now that you're going to have so much time not being able to go and offer your services. And then the first thing, of course, that she was struggling with was, well, she had two. One was same thing, the accent. And then two was, well, I've only been doing this for 2.5 years. There are people that have been doing this for longer than me, and they still don't teach this. Why should I do it? And I said, well, look, you're not going to try to teach those people. You're going to try to teach yourself 2.5 years ago when you first got started and you started doing these eyelash services in the bedroom. That's the person that you're going to help. You're not going to help somebody that's already been doing it for 2-3 times the amount of years that you've been doing it. And when she heard that, she's like, actually, that makes sense. So then the first student that she enrolled, and then the second and the third, and people were like so happy, she got great feedback. Then she started like really feeling comfortable on camera, and then she started to like really pump content, and her podcast and YouTube channel kind of blew up pretty quickly after that. So, but that was the same thing for her. I was like, all right, you're not going to be this type of expert that you're going to help the people that have been doing it for so long. You're only going to be helping yourself, the same student that you were 2.5 years ago. So focus on those people. Think about what questions you had. So I guess, in that regard, that was my story, kind of seeing it in real life.
So, well, I think we can take a few minutes because we're talking about imposter syndrome. What we're really talking about is redefining how we're giving value. And we can actually switch your mindset really quickly for imposter syndrome. I just want to speak a little bit, okay? So what's the point of having an expert in the first place?
Mentor.
So, but why does someone want someone that's more of an expert in order to get results faster?
Yeah,
correct?
From them.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. So the point of being an expert is hopefully that the audience will gain faster results. So the goal is not to be the most smartest person in the world in the business sense. It's the person who can get people the results the fastest and the best and the most effective. Okay. Now, there's a story that one of my mentors told me. He said, "Oh, kid, if you're on a beach and you see someone drowning, and you go save them, and you save them, and now the person is saying, 'Oh, thank you so much for saving me.' Does the person care how you saved them? Do you care how if they were on a? Do they care if you went on a jet ski or you swam over there? They just want to be saved. So sometimes we say, "Oh, we have to have the best knowledge." It's not knowledge that your audience wants. They want to be saved. So who would you actually rather choose? Would you choose a person that has 25 years of experience and have a lot of knowledge, or would you rather choose a person who has 1 year of expertise but getting results for people a lot more testimonials than the other person that has no knowledge or no real results at all, right? So what I'm saying is, this is the tip of it, is to redefine value, because having more expertise is perhaps a good way to get people value. However, there's a flaw in being an expert as well. It's the curse of knowledge. For people who have been experts for 30 years, the downside to that is they get stuck in their ways of thinking. Because they get stuck in the ways of thinking, they haven't seen the new way of how people are doing it now. Because you're new, you actually have an advantage. You're learning everything that's on the spot right now. The people who's been doing it for 30 years, they're like, we've been doing it our way. It must be working. They don't even look at the new ways anymore. So even when you're new, that's a big, big, big advantage, because you're learning everything about it right now. And that might be more helpful than people who have had 50 years of experience.
Yeah, and then to what you just said, a lot of times, if you look at a person that's 10, 20 years ahead of you, might even feel like, oh, there's too much of a gap between me and where that person is, versus me and the person that's only a year and a half in front of me. I can easily, merge that gap much quicker. Yeah. Right? Because it's, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, there's a saying that goes, if you are a 5th grader, you're an expert to a 3rd grader.
Right.
Meaning, if you're a college student, you're far too removed, right? In order to help people, your audience is just looking for their next step. The next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. The more sometimes if you talk to people, I think who's too smart, they can't define it. They're like, you're not at my level. I mean, and they've forgotten what you need to do. So yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense. All right, what were the other three?
Perfection.
Perfection. All right. So how do you define? Does that fit into the whole expert thing, or you just perfection when it comes to your way of communicating?
Well, let's say talking on camera. Okay. When you shoot your video, how many takes are you going to take? Are you going to take 500 takes? I would say here's the rule of thumb. I know it depends on, right? Go for 2 to 5 takes. I'm going to say 3 because your 4th and 5th and other ones will probably be the same as the 3rd one. But we get into perfection mode because we're saying, oh, I had an there and my mind blanked out there. I didn't say it correctly there. So our perfection is coming into play because we're not looking the way we want. We didn't say it the way we scripted it. We didn't say it the way we want it to sound. We want everything to sound and look so perfect that it takes us 100 take and nothing's even out there.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I feel a lot of time, well, I guess with video, it might be a little bit easier, quote unquote, versus having a live speech or maybe a live webinar, whatever. Because on a video, you can always remove some of the things that you might have said that you don't want on video and you cut it. But then when it comes to the way that you say it, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, for example, I just told you before this interview, let's make this conversational. I don't want to, I have the questions that I want to ask you, but I don't want to make it scripted because I want to dive into the answers that you're answering to my questions, because that's what real is. Like, if we would have this conversation at a cup of coffee, I would not bring my questions and then just read them from it, right? So I guess, that makes a lot of sense. Third one?
Well, actually, one more thing I want to touch on perfection. Yeah. I think this happened to me. I think this happens to everyone. We got to have the perfect gear. We got to have the perfect video camera. We got to have the perfect equipment. And if you watch anyone that's been doing videos for years, they'll be saying the same thing. You just need a regular phone and you can just do everything nowadays. But everyone's they want the good setup. They want the good background. They want the good gear. Right? That's why it takes us so much time to even put out a video to do all of that.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And then these phone. I was pointing at the camera because it's technically the phone.
Yeah.
But these phones now, like, you film 4K, you can adjust anything you want in it, like the aperture and This phone actually records same quality that my Sony camera, so it's pretty much.
Yeah.
All right. Third one. So we had imposter syndrome, perfection.
The need for external validation.
All right. Now, what does that mean when it comes, are we talking just about comments when it comes to especially with video?
Yeah.
Talking about external validation from people. So I was, you're probably familiar with Shan Cannell with Think Media. I saw a video from him today, and he was saying, you can get 99 positive comments and 1 negative. You're going to focus on that negative for the entire week. You're probably going to forget about the other 99 that were positive. Does that have to do with?
Yeah, same thing, right? External validation. It's kind of like what you're saying. When we're exposing ourselves out there, either people will like it, they'll ignore it, or do nothing with it at all. And sometimes those things can be hurtful. But some people were just so attached to, if this, like what you're saying, if that person said something like that, it must mean it's true for me. Right, so the longer that this is going back to having people judge us negatively, right? People get scared of putting themselves on camera because they don't want to be judged negatively, right? I mean, what's the difference? Well, would you go on camera and send it to your best friend? Yeah, it's easier, right? But not to other people. So it's not even just shooting the camera or shooting yourself. That's the problem. It's the people that is watching at the end of the day. Okay?
How do you personally coach your clients when it comes to this to kind of avoid that necessity of external validation? Like, how do you walk them through? Hey, like let's break the barrier of this, or what's your process?
Yeah, my process is more of helping people see it differently.
Okay.
And so what I mean by that, I just want to give I'm more of a research, I like the research stuff. So there was a study on stress a while back, one of the biggest studies on stress. They took 30,000 people and they asked them these questions. Did you experience stress? And do you think that stress is harmful to your health? So 8 years later, they found out from the public records who died. Unfortunately, 43% of the people who experience high stress, they die earlier. Here's the kicker, only if they believed that stress was harmful to their health. So let me say that again. People who had high stress, but also believed that stress was harmful to the health, died 43% earlier. Well, what about the other people? So people who had high stress, but did not believe that stress was harmful to them, they had the lowest risk of dying earlier, even lower than people who said they had moderate amount of stress. So what I'm saying is how they looked at stress made all the difference. Okay? So what I'm saying is when you are being judged, the key is we are afraid that people will see us as a human being and they're judging us based on our imperfect selves, our flawed human side, the way we say things, and so we're really having people scared of seeing us as our human selves. Now, here's the difference. Why do some people have more confidence? Because they are okay letting people see their human selves. Even though they still make mistakes, even though they still get nervous, even though they might have verbal blunders, they look at how other people see them as human selves differently. So what I'm saying is it's a mindset shift into when people see ourselves as human beings to the general public, how do we look at that? So that's one starting point to that.
So let's translate that into the online world to kind of shift the mindset of people thinking, all right, if I'm going to get negative comments, the fact that the person took time, and I have, this happens way more when you're trying to promote, at least from what I've seen. I'm getting like more hate in the ads that I'm running that I'm getting on the, well, of course, it's also the fact that it reaches more people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But typically, I used to get bothered by this when I started my first set of ads. But then I realized, the first time that I realized this was when I promoted the first video without having a call to action. So it was more of a branding exposure type, awareness type of ad. So I didn't have a call to action. I didn't say, click here to sign up, download this, get this, apply. None of that. It was just simply a brand awareness ad. So it was one of my most commented one of my most saved videos. And then I promoted that to a wider audience. And then I got, I think, 2 or 3 negative comments. And I was thinking, man, can you imagine what goes through that person on the other side of the screen? What goes through their life if they saw a piece of content that was literally just 3 simple steps to make your business more profitable or something like that. It was, or generate more customers. For them to watch a 45-second video with no call to action, nothing to ask in return, just watch it or skip it. For them to take time of their life and go write a negative comment. I mean, they must be in a really dark spot in their life, right? And then I realized, like, damn, this has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with them and whatever they're going through. And then I started to respond to comments. But without actually, throwing rocks back at them or anything like that. I was actually like legit asking them. And then 2 out of the 3 responded back, and all of them answered back. Actually, I'll try to look for this ad and put screenshots on the screen. All of them ended up, like the conversation saying, oh, dude, I'm sorry, actually. I didn't mean to write that negative comment at first. Both, 2 out of the 3, because one didn't respond. So then I realized, like, damn, can you imagine that this has nothing to do with me as the creator? It has everything to do with them. So I guess,
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to think about it, because you never know what condition, emotional space that that other people are in. So, and we just don't know. Right. We can't assume, because maybe some of them, they just had a bad day. and they just want to beat everyone up that day. They're just taking it out on you, right? So that's good. That's one. Another thing about you saying negative comments, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, if you're not getting haters, then actually you're not having a good business.
You're not promoting enough.
You're not being successful. If you actually don't have haters, then you are not successful yet.
100%.
100%.
Totally.
If you look at any great influencer out there, Mark Zuckerberg, to Grant Cardone, to anyone that you follow, do they all have lovers and haters?
100%.
Yeah, and because they have haters, that's why they're so successful. So I think a good number that you can also count is how many haters do I have? Because the more I have, the more successful I am.
It means like a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people know you, so you have a lot
Yeah,
of
so
haters.
you have to have haters. So if you're not getting haters, you need more haters. What does that mean? If you have more haters, that means you're actually giving a point of view that someone
Separates
doesn't like.
people from-
Yes,
Yeah.
and therefore, when your point of view or your concept that you're working on gets so strong, it has haters, and I think that's a very, very good thing.
Yeah, it's I forget now the word, but it's because if you're trying to just be nice to everyone, that's not gonna do any good in the long term, right?
Yeah.
You have to have a point of view that will piss someone off, and then it'll attract the diehard fans, right?
Yeah.
All right. What was the fourth?
The fourth was
So we had imposter
the
syndrome.
fear of disappointing others.
Okay. And when we're talking about disappointing others, is it disappointing the people that we talk to, like in your case, being the audience that people are talking in front of, or in this case, audience online, right? Same
Yeah,
pretty much.
the audience online, maybe if you have people that you're working with, your mentors, as in like, if I put myself out there, the people that I work with, I'm not going to serve them as the highest purpose, right? Maybe my friends, I'm going to disappoint my friends, I'm going to disappoint my audience, the content is not good enough, right? They're going to be disappointing in me. I'm letting people down.
And how do we teach people to go past that? What's your view on that?
Yeah. Think about what's in your control and what's not in your control. And so what's in your control is the content that you can put together. It is what the practice you can put in, the amount of time you can invest in it. What you cannot control, even if it's your best friend, is what they're going to be thinking. Right? So what is in your control versus what is out of your control. Again, a lot of this goes back to other people. It's just like, hey, this is what they could be thinking about. The reason I'm bringing up the fear of disappointing others, so in America, that's a little bit less. In other cultures, let's say Japan, so when they have a fear of speaking, it's not that their personal brand will go down, it's that they're afraid they're going to let the whole family and friends down. So it's a whole cultural thing. So fear is a cultural thing too, depending on where we're looking.
Yeah.
In America, it's more like my reputation. I'm going to look bad. And in some other cultures, it's not I will look bad. I'm going to make other people look bad. Yeah.
No, and I think this can also apply, depends again where you're coming from in the world, but you have this, especially families with immigrants, they want their kids to maybe have certain jobs, and I guess this applies to native, like U.S. families as well. Their parents want their kids to, go to a highly rated school, get a good job, and then when the kid comes back and says, well, you know what, I actually want to be a YouTuber, I want to be a podcaster, I want to be a TikToker, parents go crazy. So does that kind of play into into this factor?
Oh yeah,
Thinking,
definitely.
hey,
Definitely. Depending on your audience, depending on where you are, who you're located, who you have. Or let's say maybe you're having an interview, you're doing a collaboration too. All these different things. Maybe you're just not by yourself, right? Maybe you're letting your team down if you have a team. Maybe you are sometimes even letting yourself down, right? There's many things that goes into it. But the thing I have to say is when it comes to the camera, you really have to think of this as it's a different medium. And medium being the way that we communicate. So some of you out there listening, you might be amazing speaking one-on-one, but when you just speak on camera, it's just a different way of communication. So if you of course look at celebrities and politicians, they just master the skill of talking to the machine. They might be even better talking to the machine than people because it's a different medium of doing it. So it's really learning how to look at that dot, right? Look at that camera and getting used to it in one way, talking to that camera. So that's one, because it's just a different medium at the end of the day.
100%. So how do you look at these two and say, all right, how in terms of building confidence on speaking one-on-one? Actually, as a matter of fact, yesterday I saw Russell Brunson saying this in a video, saying that he's doing great speaking in front of tens of thousands of people. I think the last time that he spoke at 10X was like 30,000 people in the crowd. But then he said he struggles so bad when it comes to speaking one-on-one with someone. He says, like, if I meet you in an elevator or if I meet you somewhere and you come up to me, I don't know how to start the conversation unless you start asking me questions and things like that. So you think about a guy to his status, acknowledging like, oh, one-on-one, I'm actually struggling. And then you have the other crowd where, like you said, they're good one-on-one, but then when it comes to camera, when it comes to speaking in front of a couple more people, the fear of whatever, not having the confidence or whatever that is, kind of settles in. How do we fight that? Regardless if it's one-on-one that you're struggling with, or do you separate these two? Do you think it's different? Like it's a different type of confidence that you have to build to speak one-on-one versus when you speak to more people?
You still got to go back to kind of like upstream and the root causes, but maybe some of you are actually looking for techniques and strategies. I'm not sure if you're asking that, but I can definitely give like in the moment things that you can do, that as well. But it's the going deeper, that's the longer thing. But actually, let me give some techniques and strategies because people are looking for this kind of stuff. So usually what happens is that we have you ever heard of yips in sports? YIPS. No. So when you play golf or soccer or whatever the sport is, you can't kick the football anymore. They've been playing golf and they can't hit the ball anymore. People say, oh, you missed like 5 times. You must have the yips. What does that mean? That means they get self-conscious, and because they get self-conscious, the body mechanics doesn't play as well. Even though they practice many times and they have the skill, when they overthink in the moment, because they're overthinking, then they're not being in the moment, okay? Anymore. And that's why the mechanics that's why the performance goes down. So when we say we have a fear in that situation, we're usually very self-conscious. That is what is happening. So I'm relating this in sports because it's exactly the same thing. So what happens when we get very self-conscious? Our left hemisphere of the brain, the logical side of the brain, lights up more. Now, when people are in the flow, they're usually on the right hemisphere of the brain, which is more of the creative side of the brain. So studies have been done. This is going to sound far-fetched. If you want to get yourself out of being self-conscious, make a fist with your left hand. Okay. Now, why
for real? Is this like
I'm being for real. Okay. So, make a fist with your left hand, because what they found out is that when you make a fist with your left hand, it activates your right hemisphere more again. So it brings you out of that logical, conscious side and brings you back to the side where that's more creative. They actually did studies on this with baseball players. Those who got like more performance anxiety, gripping the ball with the hand versus gripping the ball with the left, the people that was gripping the ball with the left performed better at the end of the day. Okay. So
interesting. I
told this to my wife once, because sometimes my wife looks in the distance and looks at a spot and can't get out of that spot. And she was like, Kit, I tried this left hand grip thing that I did, and when I gripped my left hand, I snapped out of it and went back to it. So what the goal of this is, we get self-conscious, and because we're self-conscious, this is one technique. You grip your left hand, bring you back into reality.
Interesting. Like I have to try that. Like it's because it sounds, I don't know, but because you're conscious about it, does that still apply? Well, I guess, right? Well, if the study has been done, I'll have to try it to kind of test it on myself too. All right, so that's a little bit of a trick, like really in the moment. And actually, for those of you guys that are listening or watching, I'm actually curious to hear any of their opinions. So when we talk about something long-term to do, to kind of fight those, I don't know if it's emotions, if it's whatever people think there is. Actually, I told you this at the beginning of this interview. One thing that worked for me really well was, especially at first, recording videos, because again, it was one thing to record a video on my phone. Like, it didn't, quote unquote, scare me as much. But then when I put the actual camera with the lens and looking at the lens, it kind of became a little more official in a way. Like, oh, now it's actually like camera. I have to like look a certain way, whatever. So what I did is I actually placed the camera 45 degrees in a 45-degree angle. So I was not looking at the camera anymore, and I just had a mic in front of me, so almost like a podcast setting type of thing. But I was looking at the screen of the computer, laptop, and then the camera was filming me, again, at a 45-degree angle. So me not looking directly into the camera, it actually helped me a lot, especially until I kind of got some confidence going on. And then after that, of course, with doing it more and more often, it became much easier. But I actually shared this on a podcast, so I'm curious to hear your opinion about this.
Yeah, I think everyone has something that works for them. You know, if you just to piggyback off of you, so let's say something that you can also do very easily, grab a friend. Grab someone to do the video with you, because when you have someone and you're both on the video, it's more of a conversation and it flows easier. So you can do that a few times.
Almost like an interview type of
thing.
Yeah,
do an interview.
The person is asking,
Yeah, it just flows easier for most people.
Most people, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and then if it's something that people can actually do long term, so let's say you make a goal. All right, at the end of this year, I want to speak at least on another 1 or 2. So let's say they build up enough confidence to do videos. Now they do videos, right? Let's take it a step further into your world. Now they want to speak maybe at a workshop, or maybe they want to land some type of speaking engagement or whatever. And now it's a different type of confidence or is it?
No, it's similar. It's very similar.
So how do you go past now the fact that, okay, my videos have been seen by whatever number of views they're getting, but now they have to go and present in person, regardless if it's 20 people, 10 people, 100, maybe more, whatever the situation.
Well, they have to ask themselves first, what is scaring them? Most people just say, I'm scared, I gotta do more reps. But they still never explore and ask the question, either if it's in front of a camera or I have to stand up in front of people, what the heck is scaring me? And they just don't take time to
go back to the root problem.
To go back to the root, okay? There's something that I'd like to share. I'm going into like too much study land today. Maybe this is the last one. There's an experiment called the Little Albert experiment. And so this was done back in the 1920s. It's not ethical now, but they do. They can do this stuff back then. So the scientists wanted to see if he can instill fear into the baby, which is little Albert, okay? And so he would have little Albert, sit down, and then he would place a rat in front of little Albert. What do you think happened when the rat was crawling around little Albert for the first time?
How old was little Albert?
Like a baby.
Baby probably didn't know what was going on, so he didn't care.
Yeah, so the kid was actually, this is actually on YouTube. So you can see the baby laughing, smiling, ooh, it looks like, what is this animal? So eventually the scientists left the rat out again, but this time he took a hammer and made a loud, scary noise. So the mouse would come, loud hammer noise. Mouse, loud hammer noise. And because the baby would hear the loud hammer noise, little Albert started crying. And then eventually, he took the hammer away and only the rat came out. Now, when little Albert only saw the rat, he would start crying.
Because he was associating that with the
loud hammer noise. So now, he sees the rat as a monster rat. He was conditioned to be scared of it. Now, so this is a very interesting question. So if you let's say this is public speaking or a camera, or if you only place little Albert in front of a group of people speaking and do that 10 times, will little Albert be scared of speaking if he only just was placed in front of 10 groups?
No.
Why not? Because there has to be some kind of stimulus, which is the hammer. Okay? So in our case, what is usually the hammer it's our way of thinking. We're hammering ourselves over and over, unless sometimes you get negative comments, right? That can also be the hammer.
Right, yeah.
But we have been hammering ourselves with our negative thoughts, the way we're looking at the situation. So we're not looking at the situation clearly. So what am I saying? What if little Albert was able to see the monster rat as only a tiny little animal again? He would be free from fear, right? So the question now goes back to when you get behind a camera or you're speaking into people, what is the rat? Actually, a question for you. What do you think is the big rat for people when they have to speak behind a camera or when they have to speak in people? What are the rats? There's not just one, but what are the rats?
I guess one would be just the fear of, again, it's the fear of unknown, the fear of being judged, again, by not being the expert.
Well, here's a question to make it more clear. So if we ask little Albert, what does he not want? He would probably say, I don't want to see the rat. Right? So if we ask you, the listener, or you too, what is it that you don't want when you're speaking behind a camera or when you're speaking in front of a crowd? Like for you, it was maybe your accent before. Right?
Right, yeah, that was
So what is it before? What is it that you did not want?
What did I not want?
Yeah.
Well, again, it was for me. I did not want to be judged because of my accent, but I never was. So that was the whole thing.
Well, how do you think about your accent now?
I don't care about it because what happened was I realized over time nobody ever cared about it.
How do you see your accent now?
I don't see it. I never. I don't think about it.
Do you see your accent just as it's my accent?
It's actually part of my story now. Like I'm happy bringing it up, and I'm acknowledging the fact that I'll probably never lose it completely. But I don't mind it. Like,
okay.
I don't care about it.
So in your situation, right? In the accent is the tiny little animal, but before you saw having an accent as this monster. Now you don't see that monster. Nothing changed. It's just the way that you saw it. Yeah. So you don't see it as the monster accent anymore. So what I'm saying is what is it that you don't want in the listeners' case, and you have to challenge. Why do I see it that way? How did I come to the conclusion? Why am I looking at it this way? That's the beginning.
And I feel like in my case, I was just too much in my own head. Because again, it never really happened for someone to even critique it, like in person or online. It was just me thinking that that's going to happen.
Correct.
Like it never, so...
Right.
But it's a good, now I like that side. Like I want to go and actually watch the YouTube video to see, because it seems a little extreme like that.
Yeah, back in the 1900s.
Yeah, they were allowed to do that. So I'm curious to find out, what do you see with your own clients? What other ways? Because these are the things that I'm noticing myself through comments or through other people's interactions. When it comes to confidence, speaking on camera, speaking on a podcast, whatever, what do you see different? Like, what are other things that people are struggling with when it comes to this? Or what are other reasons that people might bring up when it comes to this topic?
Now, I'm going to pose a very serious question. Now, this may make you rethink how the reason we're talking about going on camera is because we want to grow our business and maybe make more income. Is that one of the biggest reasons, do you think?
I mean, in my audience's case, and even in my case, yes.
So now we have the question, do we really have to do this? How did we come to the conclusion that everyone needs to go on camera and build up? Now I'm even questioning that, right? So what I'm saying is, we just say, we have to make videos. We have to do this. Okay, don't get me wrong. I think there's a good perspective on that. But I have to put so much content. I have to put so much video. But am I forgetting the end goal? What is the end goal? Maybe it's to help people faster and earn more money. Because we're thinking, if we make more videos, therefore we will make more money.
More people.
Yes, now I'm saying, yes, of course, yes. Yeah. If you do make more videos, there's a possibility. But what I'm saying is, sometimes people, they come to me, they're like, Kit, I have this big fear of public of going on video, but they feel obligated to make videos because everyone else is making videos. Now, I'm not saying to avoid it, but I'm saying really caution. Do you actually need to go on video in the first place just because everyone else is doing it? Yeah,
I feel to answer directly to that, it really depends the type of business that you're in, because in some cases, it really has to do with what's the end goal. Like, for example, I'm talking about, let's say we're talking about a brick and mortar, let's say a construction company, right? Now, do they have to create a ton of videos because they want to be more known? Maybe not, because at the end of the day, it's not necessarily a sexy industry, quote unquote, to build a brand. Let's assume, right? But creating videos with the guys, you don't have to be necessarily on camera as the owner talking about different things, but recording the employees on a job site doing specific things and then showing before and after, that builds credibility for the company. It's one, in my opinion. Of course, you can fake all kinds of reviews. Of course, you can fake photos of before and after projects. It's hard to fake a video or multiple videos on a daily basis. And in my opinion, it builds credibility for the type of business that you want to create. Now, in my case, because one of my main topics is personal branding, so it has to do with building a brand for yourself as a person. Now, that person can be the owner of different businesses, and they may want to exit at some point one of those entities. So his personal brand would be the only thing that would not die off once he exits that company. So, of course, the situations and scenarios could be endless in this case. Now, we're also talking, let's say, take a photographer. Did the photographer need to do videos because he or she can take just photos of the work and then, of course, get more? You can challenge that and say yes or no. There's no right or wrong, right? Like, at the end of the day, you can still grow your business and make maybe enough income just through photos. What would the videos do? Again, build more credibility for who's behind the camera type of thing. Now, can you make it without? There will be a challenge that you can just use direct response type of strategies. Then you may not need to record a video every single day or once a week or a podcast or whatever. It's not that you have to do it. It's just, in my opinion, it compounds from a business standpoint. I'm not talking about the person necessarily that's just creating videos for the sake of creating videos. Like, let's say you have, I don't know, a passion about golfing, because you brought up golf. But you don't have a way to monetize, or you don't plan to. Like, do you have to do it? 100% you don't, right? Because there's no ROI correlated to that task. Now, when it comes to business, in my opinion, that's the answer. It will build credibility for regardless what type of service you have to offer, for the other person at the end of the screen to believe more in what you have to do versus the company that's not doing it. So I guess that's there's no right or wrong. Like, you can.
I agree with you. I think video is very, very powerful, and on social media nowadays or internet, all the attention is going towards video, and of course you can maximize that, of course. But again, some people, I'm just saying, there's some people that come to me, their strong suit is not video, but they feel obligated to make videos. Maybe later, yes, but I'm saying play to your strong suits now. I mean, unless you want to improve on that. But yeah, video. I think video is good. It's just
No, but I like how you ask the question to, especially to your customers, because maybe there are people that are just really great writers. Like, now with ChatGPT, those writers can pump 100 times more articles than before, right? Because now you have the experience of a writer, plus you put it on steroids pretty much with ChatGPT, right? Like, that's the way that I look at it. Like, writing, it's not my forte, but with that, you take a tool like that and then you use it as a tool. You don't just copy and paste, in my opinion. But anyway, that's a topic for a whole different
No, but to bring this back to confidence, right? like the example I just gave, I was questioning why we were even making videos in the first place. So when it comes to confidence, for the listeners out there, what do you think you need to question? That's the most important thing, right? Albert Einstein said if he had 1 hour to save the world, he would spend 55 minutes on finding the right problem to solve and only 5 minutes to solve it. And so if you're asking yourself the wrong question, you might go down to a rabbit hole.
To the wrong rabbit hole that you never...
Yeah, over and over.
Totally get that. So what do you think is there... Because you kind of dived a little bit into a few tactics as well. Is there one thing that people can do on a daily basis? I don't know if that means working out to kind of get your dopamine in a different state of mind. Is it, I don't know, like whatever.
Yeah, I personally call this the ask method. It's asking yourself a question that you want to explore, answer it yourself, and then ask another question based off of how you answer, and keep on digging down that way. So let's use an example. What's something that you're trying to work on?
Something that I'm trying to work on right now?
Yeah.
So I just gave you an example before this interview with content creation when it comes to some of my customers and even our own business. So it was taking one video, one longer piece of content, and then instead of, because the main problem was just giving it to the editor and tell him, all right, now chop it up into 3-4 shorter videos. But then a lot of times those 3-4 shorter videos did not make a lot of sense in a 1-minute setting because maybe the conversation or the question that I was answering or I was asking, it was longer than that. So then we had to add a different person in the mix. So that was the...
Okay, so let's do this.
It's the process.
So let's ask a question. What is a question? So the example could be, why am I doing this? Right? If this is coming back to the camera example, the question that I want to explore at the beginning question could be, why am I so nervous when I have to speak in front of a camera? Why do I procrastinate? How do I do? So I'm asking for you to frame a question at the beginning. What question would you ask?
Okay, so let's ask this to be specific to the podcast topic. So, why do I not have the confidence to speak on camera?
Okay, then what would you say? I'm trying to use you as a live example. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
So how would you answer? So how would you answer that? So okay, but that's why I'm saying, why do I? Right? Because after you ask that question, then you answer it yourself, either written down or you say it out loud. But
so let me take. Okay, so I'll take it back. So why I don't have the confidence to speak on camera? I related back a couple years ago.
Okay.
Because of my accent.
Okay, now what question would you ask based on the answer you just gave?
What's the main reason that you think that your accent is so much affecting this?
Okay, and what would you say?
So then I would answer back, well, this is a hard question to answer because I have never asked myself this.
So what would you say?
So I mean, if back then was the fact that I was just, I don't know. It was an answer that I would probably say I don't know because I never actually had to face it. It was just me thinking about this. So it wasn't. Yeah, I don't even know what to answer to that.
Okay, so yeah, you can say
from there. I don't know.
You can say I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Why I don't know this.
And then you can leave it for a little bit and then come back to it later. So what I'm saying is if you do this on a daily basis, you'll get a lot of shifts really, really quick because you're addressing it directly. And if you ever had a coach before, a mentor, this is what they're doing to you all the time anyway. Same exact thing. They're just asking you they're helping you dig down a little bit deeper.
Yes, I mean, you answer your own questions and then you realize that a lot of the things are just in your head.
Yeah, and you don't have to ask why every single time. It could be, oh, what do I mean by that? Right? When I say people don't like my accent, what do I mean by that? And then you give yourself definitions, and then you don't have to ask why the whole time. There's many different forms of things you can say to yourself. So it's having a conversation with yourself.
Yeah. And do this every day, pretty much, when it comes to like whatever the things that you're struggling with. Like this guy, I feel like this can apply in a lot of, right? Like why I can't lose the last 10 pounds of fat that I want to lose?
Yeah.
Well, because of my diet. Why do I mess my diet? Boom. And then it's, right, like you can go down this rabbit hole of questions. Like this can apply to anything, not just the confidence.
Everything. Yeah. So this is something that I try to aim to do as well.
All right. So as we're getting close to wrapping things up, how do you track your clients' results when it comes to this? I feel like it's so hard. Like, do you have them report back to you with the things that they're still struggling after you work with them in terms of how?
No, that's one sentence I want them to say. I'm free from speaking anxiety.
So and then how long is typically this taken?
So that depends. That's a great question. How fast does it take for people to get over their speaking anxiety, whether it's on camera or meeting or speaking? It depends on how open-minded they are. I know that sounds a little bit far-fetched right now. Yeah. Some clients, actually, it's a week or 6 days. Sometimes it's a month or 2 months. It depends on your accent. How fast do you think it will take you from back then to see it now? You know what I mean? It's like, did you really change anything? I mean, what did you change?
I probably did more videos, and then with time I forgot about it.
And but what did you change about the accent? Nothing. So
I just thought about the way thinking about it. That's it.
Okay. Because you didn't even, now, that's what I mean. Some people, if they're more open-minded, do you see the way that you see your accent is not the way that you saw your accent?
Oh, 100%.
100%. So the faster you are about being open-minded about how you're looking at the situation, change can be easy if you let it, because it's merely a change in perception. It's kind of like saying a funeral versus a celebration of life. It's just a different way of looking at it. So it can be fast if you let it.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. What's one question you wished I would have asked you and I haven't?
I think one question would be, if I have speaking anxiety, what's the question I need to ask myself?
Right. And what's the question that we should ask ourselves?
Why am I looking at my situation this way?
Why am I looking at my situation this way?
Yeah. So if this is
from there go to the.
Yeah. So if this is the monster rat, why am I seeing this rat as a monster? How did I come to that conclusion?
I like that.
Yeah.
I guess it's and it will apply to everybody in their own way, because we all have different reasons why we think about this. Have you had a chance to compile the reasons in like 3 categories or maybe less of why people have this?
Oh yeah, definitely. So the most common beliefs that's leading to speaking anxiety, doesn't matter if it's on camera or on in front of people. There are a few. People are going to be judging me, and they're going to be judging me negatively. I or my ideas don't matter, as in if I share something, what I say is not important, what I say is not interesting, what I say is, people won't like it. Being seen as nervous is bad or weak. People can't see me as being nervous, right? Mistakes and failure are bad. I need to do things perfectly for people to accept me. So these are just a few. So these are some of the common beliefs that people have when it comes to contributing to their speaking anxiety.
Gotcha. All right. So what I like to do on every episode is to give people 2 simple tasks to do. One, something that they can do at the end of this episode to work on their process of building more confidence. And then one that they can do for the rest of their life, maybe for the next 6 to 8 months. Let's say somebody has a goal, like let's say, maybe they have a speaking engagement, or maybe they plan, hey, I'm planning to launch this webinar in 6 months, or maybe I plan to launch whatever show. Maybe I start interviewing people, right? Like that's another skill set that I feel a lot of times, like one of my main problems was I was, especially at first, and Pat Flynn, when I interviewed him, I asked him at the end, what do you think I've done wrong and how can I improve? And then he said straight up, he said, it's not that you didn't necessarily wrong, maybe nobody told you this, but you should stop looking at the scripted questions so much. Not that I'm looking at it like physically, but try to dig more based on the answers that the person has. So, that was one thing that I love to hear. So let's give people one thing that they can do at the end of this episode and one that they can do for the next couple months.
I would say based on some of the things that we talked about is one, start using the ask method. How can you write down today? Take like 2 minutes. You don't even need 5 minutes. Take 2 minutes. Write down a question it, answer it, and then question it, and then answer it again. Just do it 3-4 times. That's one immediate thing.
Okay.
They can
And
do.
then long term?
Long term, I would say really just let me think about this for a second.
And this can be,
Yeah.
for the next, it can be 3 months, it can be for the next 3-6 weeks or whatever, or it can be something that they can do for forever until they reach that goal of, okay, now I have enough confidence to speak on camera, maybe speak on a stage, whatever it is.
Yeah. So I would say, because as you can see, I'm leaning towards the mindset side.
And I like that because it's something that can be evergreen forever.
So the long-term side is how can you pick a new mindset that you want to have and find experiences that prove that mindset correct. So as an example, let's say the new mindset is my accent is actually what draws people to me. In the next 1 year, how can I find experiences that would validate that?
I mean, I can even answer right now. Like, I've had a lot of experiences like that, especially at events when people were just listening to me for like a minute or two. The first question was, where are you from? Right? Because you immediately have the... You realize.
So let's say if people are on camera, the new belief could be, how can I find experiences that would validate me not looking perfect on camera? Okay. How can I find experiences where I'm just shooting on my phone and it's the background is my bed? How can I find experiences that would validate that I don't need to be perfect when I need to show up on camera?
I want to make a joke on that.
Yeah.
If you are on your phone or whatever camera, now there are a lot of tricks where as long as you are far enough, like separating yourself from the background, you can make it blurry.
Oh, yeah.
But that was just a side thing. All right. So something that they can do at the end of this episode is start using the ask method, like you ask yourself, and then long term, find experiences that would validate the fact that you might be wrong when you're thinking in the wrong mindset. I mean, you are wrong.
Different mindset.
And then change that. I love it. All right. So if people want to connect with you, what's your favorite place? Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook? Where do you want people to go?
Yeah, thank you for asking. You can go to BostonSpeaks.com. Boston and then SPEAKS.com. That's it.
All the information is there.
That's it.
Awesome,
That's
man. Well, thanks a lot again, Kid, for being on the show. Do you feel like it's one thing that you want to leave the audience with outside of what we talked about? Maybe a quote that you like or some, I don't know, any kind of message?
The best speakers are human.
Boom. Mic drop.
Yes, that's it. Well, Marian, thank you for having me.
100%, man. This was awesome.
Brand up.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Brand Up Podcast. I hope you found this episode helpful and hopefully you'll implement it because knowledge without action means nothing, as we all know, right? Now, if you're inspired to build an unstoppable brand that conquers sales and implement a predictable client acquisition system, my Brand Up Accelerator program is here to help you do just that. So what we do inside the accelerator, it's a 9-step process. So first step is, of course, we have to do an assessment and understand exactly where your brand is at. Do you need help with implementing it within your business, or you need help with separating your personal brand from your business? I think that's really important. Step number 2 is we do a little bit of goal setting because we have to understand where we are, but then we need to know where we're going to go. Step 3 is we do a brand development strategy. Number 4 is the client acquisition plan itself, because we need to know how we're going to acquire customers, what is the offer looking like, things like that. Step number 5 is the content creation and also the platforms that you need to focus. Some people need to focus just on one, some people need to focus on multiple, depending how big the team is, depending, how many resources they have. Number 6 is collaborations and possible podcast connections. Number 7 is the sales process. Number 8 is paid ads, because up until point 7, we pretty much build the fire, and the paid ads, in my opinion, is literally the gasoline that you pour on top of it. And number 9, we implement and refine, because we need to understand what works and do more of that. So if you're ready to take your personal brand and business to the new heights, head over to brandupaccelerator.com to learn more and apply now. Thanks again for listening, guys, and I'll catch you in the next episode.